Start. Hi, and welcome to this year's 2013 NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Michael. My colleague right here is Andrew. This is the first time that we've actually been doing this for this year's fantasy football draft. And we do have a lot to discuss and a lot to go over. We will talk about the draft in detail, about who exactly went where. We'll talk about the roster, and we'll talk about analysis of each individual roster and see exactly where their strong and weak points. And that'll go throughout the course of the football season.
Keep in mind, this is supposed to be more for fun predictions here, so don't take it personally when we predict your team to go 5-11 or we call your picks horrible. So please don't take too much offense to this. Have fun.
All right.
So let's first talk about the draft itself. Did you miss the hat, Mike?
Yes. I thought that the bingo set actually was a very nice addition. Unfortunately for those, the ball didn't actually drop the right way. What I'm referring to is mostly the hot rods.
Yes. Mr. 30, the hot rods.
Yes. Also, I'd like to point out the unique ability of Jonathan actually to predict some of the numbers and a lot of the voodoo that went on regarding going clockwise or counterclockwise with the device.
Well, I personally like the idea of the crank theory that was going through the draft. That people predicting with one crank enough, or is it like a stopping point? Because there were some mixed opinions. Pedro, I know, was trying his luck at that formula. With mixed results.
So did Ben. And some results actually worked very nicely for both of them throughout the course of the draft, and we will actually talk about that.
All right, so let's talk a bit about round one. Let's talk about some interesting picks we saw come up. And the first one was an interesting choice.
Yeah, I would have to say that the first one goes out to Tony Gonzalez, that was actually picked as the third overall selection by the expansion team Maximus. I understand he's new and he's learning the game, and trust me, it'll take a lot to actually learn our particular draft. It all comes down to matchups always when dealing with our particular draft. So perhaps Tony Gonzalez actually might be a good selection, coming down the road, and will provide some production throughout the NFL season for the Maximus. But considering how many options you exactly had, in the first particular round, and that allowed Ben to actually get Adrian Peterson, that actually was a very interesting move.
Well, I'd say Tony Gonzalez is a good tight end. He's going to give you numbers, but would you rather have Tony Gonzalez or the following players? I'm just going to run off some lists here. Adrian Peterson, Roddy White, A.J. Green, Marshawn Lynch, Jimmy Graham was on the board. If you're going to go tight end first, probably been your best bet there, Jimmy Graham. But yeah, I can't excuse this pick at number 3 for Maximus with Tony Gonzalez. It's too high. Even if it is a safe play, it's just way too high considering the talent that was on the board.
Considering overall he was not the best tight end overall in this draft either.
Including, I just like to mention that, look, every team starts out young that way. Jake the Snake Plummer over here from over a decade ago.
Yeah, that was a very long time ago. He was very young.
Our two-time champion, Killer Toads, they made their first impression in this league was Northern Reggie Bush.
Well, considering that he was very hot coming out of college, you can understand why he might have thought that.
And unfortunately, he learned the hard way.
Yes, he did. But then again, you wound up drafting Reggie Bush.
Well, I was in the third round. We'll get to that. So, the interesting thing I noticed here was the number 1 pick this year went to New England's offense for the Bolts.
It was a very interesting move. We all know the reputation of the New England Patriots. Tom Brady could turn out to be a very instant winner. However, this is a very different New England team this year, considering that their only weapon offensively outside of Stephen Ridley would be Danny Amendola. So it's going to be very challenging to see exactly what New England does throughout the course of the season. I don't really expect them to have a great year overall. I'm not saying that New England actually can't be productive throughout the course of the year. It'll depend upon exactly which games. But as the number 1 pick overall this year, it could be questioned.
I question it more because of the team who drafted in this case. After considering the Bolts kept San Francisco's offense as one of their 2 offenses, you can only start 1 offense. So 2 of your top 5 players, presumably, one of them has to be on the bench every week. That could cause a problem as we get further on into the season. Especially the idea of trying to juggle San Francisco versus New England. Especially considering the Bolts then take Colin Kaepernick at number 16 in the first round. So now we have a San Francisco combo that has to battle with New England's offense for time on the roster. And I don't know how that's going to work throughout the season.
Either way, New England and San Francisco together actually is a very good 1-2 punch overall, even if you think that New England is your number 2. But it depends upon how the rest of the supporting cast is going to add up on Tom's roster this year. So, to me, it is a very good 1-2 thread, plus he has a combination with Kaepernick. So, to me, I certainly think that his team still has a lot of strength, despite the fact that he chose New England number 1.
Tell you, someone who made a good draft of themselves pretty late, looking at teams like the System of the Down, considering what they started, they didn't draft that actually till 24. They were, I think, the last team to go. They actually did a pretty good job here. Chris Johnson late in the first round, Wes Welker, then Larry Fitz. Not bad considering the position. Maybe a little overreach on Welker, though.
Well, Welker actually might have a more productive year, considering that he's more on a winning team as opposed to the other two, which are in rebuilding mode. But not to say that Chris Johnson, who's not coming off a great year last year, might have more of a breakout season as opposed to what he had last year. And, Fitzgerald, he'll be productive during the course of the year. We know he's still one of the best wide receivers in this game. The question is, how productive will he be with his quarterback, Carson Palmer?
Right.
We don't really have a lot of expectations for Arizona throughout the course of the year. So, we'll see what happens.
Well, let's talk about round 2 a bit now. Let's move on to the second round. Let's talk about things that caught my eye. Blitz taking Darryl Sproles at number 5. Crazy or smart?
Considering that New Orleans actually likes to spread the ball a lot, Sproles will get some touches, and he'll get some touchdowns as well. What you're really looking at Sproles is really 6 points. I mean, he's not going to score for you every single game, okay? But he could be that spark plug that you have during the course of the game, in particular at home. Considering on the fast track turf that they actually play on, I would say he's more of a candidate to get more touches and more touchdowns at home as opposed to on the road. He is more of your number 2 than your number 1.
Yeah, and the Blitz are going to have to be living off him at number 1. That was the first back they did take off the board. Probably a little early, but compare it with Breeze, you can get at least a little logic there, even if it's maybe a little bit of an overvalue.
I would say between looking at your roster with the running backs alone, that is probably your weakest point. Not to say that you can't get some of the production of the running backs that you have in your squad from what I see, which is going to be very interesting to see what you do week to week.
Which we'll go into more in depth when we get to the teams themselves. Other things I caught my attention. Tavon Austin goes number 20 in round 2. First rookie off.
First rookie. There actually were a lot of decent amount of rookies actually taken. Austin, who's going to get a lot of the touches. Him and, of course, free agent pickup Jared Cook as well, the tight end. And you might expect a little bit more out of St. Louis last year. We'll see what Bradford does coming into the season, see if he can stay a full season healthy. And we'll see exactly what Austin is going to present to the St. Louis Rams offense this year, considering they no longer have Danny Amendola. But he's going to be the main guy along with Gibson this year.
One round I have to question here is some of the picks the Hot Rods made in round 2 that kind of bother me a bit and overvaluing. Marcellus Bank goes 33.
Bennett actually signed the big contract coming into the season with the Giants. We'll see exactly what he does for the Bears. Cutler actually likes to go to the tight ends, and particularly within the red zone.
There's an issue though of you could have probably let Bank fall a little further here, and even if you didn't get him, you could probably feel safer.
Considering it's a tight end, but it also depends upon what tight ends were actually taken. Now, a lot of tight ends were actually taken in the first round.
A lot earlier. I believe a lot went in round 2. Come to think of it,
Graham actually was off the board. That the other Gates was actually taken as well. Tony Gonzalez is gone. So perhaps the Hot Rods felt at that particular time it was the right opportunity to draft a tight end, considering what was left on the board. Now, there are some tight ends that went later on that you could have taken that actually might work out. That's not to say that Ben would be a bad choice as a tight end. He could certainly be within the top 5 to 10.
No, I agree. Marcel Bounce is probably a top 10 tight end in this league. But again, I question at this point, number 33 in the second round. It's a lot of running backs still out there. A lot of other positions you can go for. And
considering his overall draft position might not have been the best at the time. But considering that he got Benner on his squad, it'll be a decent addition.
Well, one thing you talk about a lot of tight ends going. Bossman drafted 2 tight ends in this round. Vernon Davis, number 1, and then they take Gronkowski at 27.
Well, Vernon Davis with him is more of a fan favorite as well. Considering his production, he also is a 49ers fan, so he knows what Vernon Davis is actually
fan bias and people.
Well, considering that the boss man is, has a lot of San Francisco players on his squad. Okay, so I certainly think that Vernon Davis will be very productive, barring any injury this year. As far as Gronkowski is concerned, we don't know exactly when he's scheduled to come back.
I don't think he'll miss too much time.
He probably won't miss too much time, but it's not a bad choice having Gronkowski as a backup either way, as long as he has other position players to come.
I just feel like 2 tight ends in the second round. That's
depends upon what his strength was. Also in the first round, who he managed to keep.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about his roster later on.
All right, because again, you can only start one, so I just wonder a little early to take on a backup.
Considering what we saw in his roster, he could certainly be a threat this year. So.
I agree. Of course, one of my most hated picks in this round goes to you, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis at 22.
Considering actually what was in the running back pool at the particular time, that almost seemed like the best option out there.
Just looking at round 3 alone, LaShawn McCoy on the market, Monte Ball, Reggie Bush, Darren McFadden.
I did not have the opportunity to get Ball.
Lamar Miller.
I did not want to take a shot on Miami's running game.
Yeah, I just feel like
Monte Ball was actually the true target of mine. At that particular time, I would have taken him probably with Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, but Tom snatched him before he had the opportunity.
Because you had 22 with Ellis, even then you had 29. You went Steve Smith, which Steve Smith's fine. There's no problem with that.
I didn't want to take a shot on McCoy at the time, considering Chip Kelly likes to throw the ball a lot as opposed to running it. That's why I was hesitant on taking LaShawn McCoy. More so at that time, we'll see how Ben Jarvis Green Ellis was steady. Bear in mind, my number 1 overall is Foster, and the brunt of the work will actually go to Foster. Okay, who's capable of scoring more than 1 touchdown.
Yeah, Foster's going to be a thorn in everyone's side this league when they play the Pigskins.
If I get 6 out of Jarvis Green Ellis during the course of the season, I'll be very happy.
Other things, things I did like from this round, I love the Miles Austin pick at 28 by the Falcons. Talk about a good value pick here. Miles Austin, second receiver, Dallas. This is a solid 7 to 9 touchdowns probably.
I would agree with that with Miles Austin, and particularly in home games, he's more productive. I would say it's a solid pick. Miles Austin is drafted every single year.
Yeah, I find that to be a very safe play late in the second round. A little hard to find a good value picks, and I thought that was a good one in particular. So let's move on to round 3. Now we start getting to the point of the draft where our main roster start filling out, and we start looking at our backups, or in some cases, kicker. Which goes at number 14 to the Rough Riders. Steve Gutowski at number 14
in the third round. I believe that Gutowski actually was the first kicker that was taken off the board.
Yeah.
I suppose at that particular time, Ben felt that the kicker actually was the best thing to go after. Whether or not he actually saw other players that may or may not have been available, that's yet to be seen.
I feel like jumping on kickers in round 3...
It's happened before.
You
had a kicker that was taken in the first round, which I actually believe was Sebastian Janikowski many years ago.
Yes, and we wonder how intoxicated that person was at that time, just like Janikowski was when he's kicking a field goal.
Yes. So, but Janikowski is productive. He's one of the best point getters in this league. So, not a terrible pick overall with Ben, but looking at his overall squad, I don't think that Ben's going to have too much of an issue.
Things I did like out of this round, Lamar Miller at 18, Torrey Smith at 17, Smith drafted by the Bolts.
Smith is going to be their number 1 target this year.
Anytime you land the number 1 receiver on a good offense like Baltimore, even if we want to strangle Joe Flacco sometimes as a fantasy quarterback, you got to respect taking someone at a first wide receiver.
Torrey's going to get the bulk of the receptions this year now that Bolden has departed. So.
Bolden will now be trying to make up for Michael Crabtree's absence over in San Fran. Let's see. Darren McFadden. I don't think I've ever seen him go this late in the third round. Not a lot of value. Not a lot of faith in Darren McFadden anymore.
I think a lot of people want to avoid the Raiders in a draft. You don't know how well the team is going to do throughout the course of the season.
We do know, Mike. It's usually bad. That's not usually the issue with figuring out the Raiders. Have you been pegging them for good seasons all this time?
I'm not pegging them for good seasons. I'm pegging them at times that they could actually surprise you.
Usually it's in the opposite direction. When we think they're going to do 7 to 9, and this is the year they come out of their shell.
It doesn't matter necessarily when or whether to lose. It's a question of how productive Oakland can be offensively. And at times they've shown throughout the course of the season that they can.
But in predicting where that offense is coming from, it's been a nightmare for teams. Like, it's impossible to know which receiver's going to... I remember, Ford was a hot topic for a couple weeks, and he just died down.
Who knows if McFadden has ever actually fulfilled,
When he's healthy, he can be a good running back, but
He's also playing for a very poor team. So
just be prepared. Just be prepared for an injury, because that's what Darren McFadden has done to fantasy owners the last few years. Just nothing but hurt.
I like McFadden as a back, but the team has not improved, so the production actually might suffer as a result.
Also, players on my shit list: Jacoby Jones at number 33. Defend.
I don't have too much of a defense out of that. You know, he could be an extra weapon in the kicking game. I think that actually is a bonus. But other than that, he's going to be asked to actually step up this year, considering the Bolton is gone. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, he could be an asset in the punt return, kick return game. But then again, I wouldn't expect too many TDs from him.
This is like the Devin Hester example that people tried in this league, and Devin Hester has never really worked out for people as more of a backup receiver at best. There's really no way you can value his matchup at any point. You can just tee off on any team, and you don't know when you're getting that monster kick return or punt return, quite frankly. Picks I did like. I liked Washington's offense going in the third round here with the supplemental pick to the Falcons. Another pick I did like.
Washington certainly could be a very good team this year if Griffin comes back healthy. They do have the ability to score points, home and on the road. You know, Griffin remains healthy. They have a very good shot. You know, we'll see what happens throughout the course of the season. See how well he holds up.
I'm thinking this is one I'm going to give credit for. T.Y. Hilton going 24, a player everyone seemed to want later on in this draft. Maximus did struck a good bullet here with T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y. Hilton is coming off of a good rookie season. I mean, Luck likes to spread the ball around a lot. We'll see how effective T.Y. Hilton and the whole Colts team really is going to be effective after reaching the playoffs in the first year. There's going to be a lot more pressure on them this year. I like the kid coming out of college from Florida International, so I certainly knew what he was capable of. We'll see how he does in the transition throughout his second year. He certainly had a bad playoff game against Baltimore, but we'll see exactly what he does throughout the course of the season. More likely to me that Hilton would score more at home than he would on the road.
I agree. So round 4, now we're getting into where teams are starting to guess a bit. Then there's a lot of interesting guesses going on. The Blitz taking Andre Brown early at number 10.
Wilson probably will get the most of the work for the
banking on the goal line carries. That's
probably your back, sort of like what Zach Crockett did years ago.
Oh, I remember Zach Crockett. Gave me 6 and won my Super Bowl losses.
That's when Oakland actually was very good.
Yeah, that's how long ago we've been doing this league. Oakland was actually a good team.
Days of Rich Gannon and Rice.
Rich Gannon, Tim Brown. Don't fuck with Tim Brown. Also, here's one of my favorite picks. I've been touting this since the draft occurred. Joe McKnight, everyone, at number 11.
I've been working on that pick all week, considering that he's not going to get any carries whatsoever as New York Jet.
I find that ironic. He got injured, actually, I believe, at some point this week. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's who Joe McKnight is.
No, he had promise out of USC, but he's more of a special teams player at this point, and he's not a kicker. I don't really expect McKnight to remain on the Maximus roster for that much longer.
But we get to put up with that week on our annual Morocco Displays of Intelligence section, which you'll be introduced to after
he's probably a Jet fan, didn't really realize what else was out there, and took McKnight.
As a Jet fan, you should realize that the Jets don't have any offense. You should know this as a Jet fan. That's why Mark Sanchez did not go in this draft.
Considering that Sean Green is gone and went to Tennessee, you figured McKnight might get carries. But I'm banking on it. I'm not banking on it.
I would think Bernard Powell will get any carries that Ivory doesn't get.
I probably would agree.
I think they go second on that one. I like Antonio Brown at number 16. Surprisingly, you didn't take him at 16. I really thought you were gonna nail this guy eventually.
There was a possibility I was going to do that, but I chose Lance Moore instead.
Yeah, and you fucked me over there, but that's for another day. But yeah, Antonio Brown at 16 for the Rough Riders. Good pick there, grabbing a number one receiver on any team at this point. Round 4 is usually at least the value.
I'm curious to see how well Pittsburgh is going to do offensively this year. I am very concerned about that. I don't know if Pittsburgh will be able to fully recover. And I have question marks on Pittsburgh entering this season. So, again, I like Antonio Brown. He's going to be paired with Emmanuel Sanders. You know, Brown's going to get his share of TDs this year. I'm pretty sure he will. It was good for me last year.
If he can shake off his... he wasn't that good for you last year for the record, but...
He got me scores.
I know. He got you all, 4 scores I think he had last year.
That would be good enough, considering what my other wide receivers were.
They were not pretty for you last year.
But you're saying you like Antonio Brown...
I like him as a 4th round pick.
As a 4th round pick.
We're talking value here. Do I think Antonio Brown's a top 15 receiver? No way, but when we're looking at what we're trying to draft here in the 4th round, this is a nice little move here. Anymore is like getting Deshaun Jackson here at 18 for System of the Down. Like, how did he slip that far?
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson actually slipped a long way. And considering the depth of the Philadelphia Eagles this year, Deshaun Jackson should have a much better season.
I feel
should be seeing more touches considering that Philadelphia likes to throw the ball around a lot. So I would anticipate that Jackson might have an even better year provided he stays healthy.
Yeah, the league clearly forgot about him the way he forgets where the end zone is sometimes when he goes to it. So, a good pick there. But I have to say, good pick by System of the Down here. See, any picks that I'm going to laugh at here? There's usually some. Oh, there's the Drunken Lush at 29.
He's always selected, and he'll get points.
I like the Drunken Lush.
Yes.
Just all jokes aside, Jack Alfie is a great kicker to have on a team. Good pick by Maximus at 29. Round 5. Now we get into the can we please go home part of the draft, which I know many of you were experiencing. Fun picks here. Cecil Shorts make it to the 5th round. No love for Jacksonville, huh?
No, not too much love, but then again, Jones-Drew was drafted in the 1st round.
And odds of him getting injured by week 3.
I know this pick you actually want to make a lot of fun of.
Oh, yes. Number 2 on this list, Lord knows that we've seen a lot of good offenses go, but Cleveland's offense went this year in the draft.
Cleveland will put up points. They'll put up points in certain games.
Is LeBron James coming back to town? Because that's usually the best offense I've seen
I think
that
they'll
town
put some points in certain games. Depends when you use them. Keep in mind that's the 2nd offense.
Yeah, I'm happy that the Hot Rods actually have a number 1 offense where they'll start
so
15 times a year.
So you're banking on Ben St. Louis offense is going to be more productive than Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can agree with that one. As I would take Sam Bradford's offense, even though Sam Bradford hasn't had an offense yet, but I still feel more comfy with Sam Bradford's offense. Oof, even Buffalo's offense here goes, not too bad there either.
They're all risks.
Yeah, at this point, we're playing with fire.
Then again, that's exactly what the 5th round is.
Yeah, I like the Darryl Richardson pick by the Blitz at 22. I did like that pick. Getting the number 1 back on a team in the 5th round.
It's not a bad choice.
Yeah, they're a better play.
Some picks will be used more than others. Before you might pick a Lance Moore, will be used a lot more.
Yeah, that's why I had to pick Kendall Wright at 20 because someone had to take him at 18. Lance Moore at 18. Just that made me curse.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my funnier things back to round 4 is the Bolts told me they were taking Antonio Brown. Only had the pick before them. The Rough Riders take Antonio Brown. You always know when you see the mad scrambling and ruffling a paper. It's like, I gotta find a new player now. That happened to me at 20. I was like, oh great.
That's always the best part to actually screw someone that way.
Yep. I also like this year's Mystery Relevant real quick. Michael Crabtree, everyone. Oh, I guess it's important to grab as many 49ers as you can, boss man. You made me smile
Considering that
there.
you did release him, by the way.
They did?
Yes, they did. They posted it already on Twitter.
He won't even live to see it down.
No, he's gone. Some of the players in the 5th round that you see are gone.
I'm just going to take some ballpark guesses here. Jacksonville defense, I'm guessing, survived.
Yeah.
Jake Ballard. Tell me Jake Ballard's no longer a part. Oh.
Jake Ballard is still on System of the Down.
Oof.
Considering he's going to be the number 1 tight end for New England this year for now.
Is he? Yeah, they got that guy, that rookie guy did pretty well in that game. They say he's going to might fit into like an Aaron Hernandez type role. So I'm not too sure. I'm not sure how high Jake Ballard's value is going to continue to be. Yeah, I can't really tell who else I would have cut here off the top of my head.
Dwayne Allen was cut.
Dwayne Allen was cut? Really?
Yeah.
That good tight end. All right. See why there's a more pressing need at other positions. That covers the draft pretty much, other than the lack of trades as always. That's pretty much the Blitz just taking extra draft picks like they always do. Good advice, guys. I walk into the draft with 2 extra picks next year. It's going to be a good feeling. All right, so to the rosters.
First one up is yours.
We start with the defending champs by pure coincidence. Well, I'm going to cede this one to you, Mike. I guess I'll go on defense here because I don't want to toot my own horn too much.
To me, I don't think it's a terrible roster just by looking at it. Like I mentioned earlier, your weakest aspect is going to be the running game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun playing roulette with my 5.
I think you have a good top 3 core between Cruz, between Wallace, and Bo. I mean, to me, does it scare me as much? No, but it certainly could be productive. It depends upon when you decide to start and to whom, like it always does. I mean, your two offenses are going to put up points between the Atlanta and the Giants. It depends upon which week you start. We all know that Breeze is solid, and you have Freeman that's the backup. We all know that Breeze is going to be used the majority of the time, if not 90% of the time, in the games.
I think you're underestimating. I think you're selling me short there at 90%. I don't think I've benched Drew Brees in years, quite frankly.
I'm saying that, because of the bye week.
The last time I benched Drew Brees is because I didn't want to play him in the last week of the season because I was looking to lose that game. But
again, you got what is arguably considered to be the best tight end, possibly the most protected tight end in Jimmy Graham. So whatever that you don't get in your running game, you're more likely to get in your wide receiving.
Well, I'm working on the combo. The Lions are clearly working on the combo line here with Brees, pairing him with Sproles, pairing him with Jimmy Graham.
The part is how the defense is going to pair between Seattle, who you elected to keep instead of Adrian Peterson. Now, I know Ben's going to lick his chops considering that he managed to wind up getting Adrian Peterson, and you had the ability to actually keep Peterson, and instead you elected to choose Seattle's defense as well. Now, not to say that Seattle's defense is not going to be a hot-button defense. It might have been the overall number one defense taken in this particular draft. It most likely would have, but you had arguably sacrificed the running game clearly. Okay, because you would have had Peterson. You still might have even had a shot at taking Seattle, perhaps. Okay, during the draft. And to me, Seattle could have at least been maybe taken late second, early third.
Whoa, Seattle was the number one defense point scoring last year. I don't know where you think that defense is going.
I don't think the defenses would have been drafted in the first round. You
don't think so? Let's look. Number 14 right here, Chicago's defense.
That actually was.
Houston's defense goes.
I don't really see a lot of defenses.
Houston defense, Chicago defense. And that's
not a lot.
I know, it's because some people kept defense. Denver defense.
And the Chicago defense was done actually during a trade.
Well, that was a pre-draft trade, though. That wasn't actually... just because I had to pick a 14 doesn't mean
Seattle's defense what I'm just saying in terms of Seattle itself, there are going to be games when they're going to be productive, so it just depends upon when you decide to.
Seattle. This was a no-win situation
for Kansas City. We'll see exactly what they do this year. Certainly, they could be
banking on the road to recovery.
Should I say wild card?
Banking on the road to recovery there. But in terms of blitzing, who they should have kept, this is what the options were this year for the blitz. You had Drew Brees, New England offense, Stephen Wrigley, Adrian Peterson, AJ Green, Jimmy Graham. New England's offense, Seattle defense. We're talking a lot of number one targets here.
Arguably, the Breeze was the number one, but the number two probably was Peterson, and the number three was Seattle. So it can be questioned.
It can be. Let's face it. Three of those players I just mentioned were taking the top 10 of this draft. Actually, 4 of them were taking the top 10 of this draft. So there's a reason why they were Super Bowl champions last year. But yeah, at the same time, it really stunk trying to narrow it down. It
certainly weakened your squad within the division by not keeping Peterson. So we'll see how well that pick turns out with Seattle.
Anything you think it's going to be the downfall of the blitz this year? If you had to pick a position, it's going to bring it down. It's going to be the running game.
It's going to be the running game. It's going to be you elected to have the better defense and to sacrifice the running game.
I've always been a defensive-minded player, so that's nothing new. That's nothing new for me. To keep it back.
No, it's not. So we'll see what happens this year with Seattle.
Playoff team or no playoff team? Yay or nay?
They have a good shot. Everyone might have a decent shot coming in. Some better than others. It also depends how you play each particular week.
Minus the I don't want to actually say yay or nay.
No, you should be biased.
I asked you your prediction. I didn't ask you for mine.
I think you could be a playoff team.
There you go.
I think you'd be a playoff team. I don't think that your squad this year is as strong as it was last year.
Oh, hell no. My squad is definitely not as strong. And I have this little curse hanging around my neck. 0 for 14 people returning champs. So I like my odds. Don't you like my odds?
Rather have a good week with parity. All right. Move on to Rob's.
Oh, runner-up. We're not going down the line in order, but it does seem like that a bit.
Looking at his roster, he kept Matt Ryan. A lot of people would have done the exact same thing.
No problem keeping Matt Ryan. Safe play there. In the offense was his other choice, though.
Yeah. Going with the Colts offense, the Colts will be productive offensively. It's more a question of what they do defensively, which I drafted. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Of course, he selected Philadelphia's offense. He knows Chip Kelly very well, so it's no big secret.
Congratulations also to the coach for being this year's. I can't keep track of how many offenses I draft.
He did draft Minnesota, okay, but you know what? I discovered it, and it's available. It was taken, and it was actually released.
Cue the Minnesota fans crying at this point, Mike. I believe you know how they react.
No. The key is going to be how well the two defenses hold up between Green Bay and the Giants.
Yeah, I don't like those two defenses.
That's going to be the most interesting part of the season.
Green Bay, has Green Bay ever been known for their defense in the last 2 years ago? They had a pretty good defense, but that really went downhill and a very offensive heavy division. That's 2 games you got to go against Detroit, Chicago, and Minnesota. I kind of dare you to start your defense during those weeks. And the Giants alone also don't exactly have divisional matchups that scream weak offense.
To me,
Dallas,
Rob,
Philly, and Washington.
Just by looking at it, the greatest strengths that Rob has are clearly the two offenses in Matt Ryan. You could get production out of the wide receiving position. I don't really have much of an issue with the receivers that he drafted. The receivers actually are good complement receivers, I would say.
Thomas and Nelson should be his probable starting 2, I would assume, most weeks of the season. I would assume that. Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of Tyler Eifert, quite frankly.
He's the rookie out of Notre Dame. Okay, he's the tight end for Cincinnati, so he certainly could get production there. He's got Steve Johnson as his third. So, yeah, Thomas is capable of could have a breakout season. He could have at least average maybe 2 TDs at some games. Nelson, he's got enough injury. We'll see how well the Packers do this season with the receiving corps. But a lot more is going to be relied on Nelson, considering that there is no more Jennings.
Do you have a little fear of the depth that the Killer Toads have at running back? Because I like Frank Gore and CJ Spiller, and I worry about, he's not getting a full season out of one of those guys.
Well, in comparison, it's almost the same thing what you have.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I got 5 running backs, though. Yeah. He has 4, and only 2 of them, I would say, are definite starters. Ben Tate is going to be backing up Arian Foster, which means he's hoping Arian Foster goes down.
I'm not saying he can't get production out of Gore's. I could say that he could get better production out of his backs as opposed to yours.
I'd say he has more potential to get.
He's got more potential.
I'd say he has a bigger drawback, though. Gore could be losing carries to Michael James. CJ Spiller, if he stays healthy, I really like Spiller if he stays healthy.
And Stewart will share the carries with D'Angelo Williams.
I always take the running game for the Panthers. If you're not Cam Newton, he ain't running the ball in the end zone that often. That's just how the Panthers seem to roll. I don't know how many offensive touchdowns he has in those other 2.
He's got a stronger running back core than yours.
Yeah, I guess he has the better top half. I don't
and you have a better wide receiving core as opposed to Rob.
Yeah.
So, and the quarterbacks, I would say, are almost the same.
I would not compare Matt. I would not. Breeze is better than Ryan. Let's just get that part.
I would say that equal production between Breeze and Ryan is just about the same per game.
Breeze has more touchdowns.
Each quarterback is capable of putting up.
Yeah,
3
each
spots.
one is. I would say Freeman does a much safer play than Flynn, but who really cares? Those guys will never see the light of day, most likely during the season.
I expect Rob to start Ryan the majority of the time anyway.
Yeah,
each quarterback is capable of putting up.
Do you think Rob is going to get back to the playoffs this year with his roster, though?
Got a shot. He's got a shot. We'll see.
I worry a bit this year about Rob's team.
His offenses match up with yours.
His offenses do. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be another team this year in the AFC we're gonna fall in love with. That someone might get bumped off in this hierarchy.
The interesting part is that one of your offenses, though, might be more geared towards playoff bound as opposed to the other 2. That, I would say, is going to be an interesting part, and we'll see how that goes during the course of the season. I would say that would probably be the major differential. But early in the season, these 2 offenses could go off.
Should be a fun team to watch this year. Killer Toads have usually been a long time since the Killer Toads have been off the championship radar, so this could be. See if they'll be able to maintain and get back to the playoffs for a 3rd year in a row.
Mm-hmm. The next team is actually Tom's team. I know we like to criticize Tom a lot during the course of the draft, and I always predicted that Tom one day would actually wind up getting the number 1 overall selection, which he did. Scratch
that off your list of Bolt's accomplishments, and now we're just waiting for that first Super Bowl win. Still waiting for that elusive one as Tom still goes in the record. As we speak, Tom's raising a middle finger. But I guess you didn't need me to say that to probably visualize that.
Well, I would say that the Hot Rods are the longest team without anything at this juncture, not Tom. All right, so we already had to talk about Tom, New England's offense. We know that he's got 2 solid offenses that he'll be running out, and he has Kaepernick as well, which is a good solid combo that he's got, and Flacco, which is a decent backup. So the quarterbacks are not going to be the main issue here.
I'd be amazed if anyone had quarterback as a real issue in this league when the time comes. It's such a deep world for quarterbacks this year in fantasy football. I'd be like, we're going to be probably complimenting everyone.
But for him, it's a very interesting combo. His defenses are okay. Cincinnati, decent defense. Arguably, he's got to be the number 1 defense.
Is Baltimore past his prime, though, at this point?
That is the question mark, because how well is Baltimore going to play defensively? Bear in mind that you actually kept Baltimore's defense heading to this particular draft. The question is, was about time to sever the ties with Baltimore. And that's going to be an interesting play for you throughout the course of the season, is see how well Baltimore does as you alternate with Cincinnati. That's probably going to be the biggest thing for you heading into this season.
Yeah, this time I can't say there's going to be a stellar defense here. And
in terms of your running backs, we know Ridley's capable of being productive.
Ridley should get double-digit touchdowns.
I would
with New
expect
England.
Ridley actually to be more productive this year.
As long as Shane Vereen doesn't steal goal line carries, I think Ridley still will get 9 to 10 touchdowns with New England's offense.
The rest of your running backs, I would say, are more chances of anything else, considering that you have really a lot of players on your roster that don't have a lot of experience. Bell, which is the rookie from Michigan State, we'll see how well he does, and you have Monte Ball, who's getting the opportunity to start this year for the first time now that McGahee is no longer a factor. So Ball actually would be a very good and interesting wild card, considering that Denver has very high expectations this year. So Ball could be a very good steal for you and could be very, very troublesome for a lot of opponents.
Well, I'd say Ben in particular, because when we see a list of Broncos that Tom has here, I guess he's really
I'm sure that Ben might have had Ball on his radar. I'm pretty sure that he would if he wasn't taken so early.
Just looking, I'm just going to visualize this matchup, this trash talk matchup here. Again, Monte Ball and Eric Decker in the lineup by default, just to shave points most likely.
Yeah. The receiving core, I believe, might be a little weaker area. It's of some depth. Again,
lacks a solid number one.
It lacks a solid number one. Decker, I'm sure, will get his touches along with Thomas, but I'd say that Thomas really is the go-to guy.
Plus, Welker's going to now cut.
And Wes Welker is probably going to cut a lot of the time with Decker. But Decker's a solid receiver, and you also pick up the rookie in Hopkins. We'll see how well he does for the Texans this year. You have Torrey Smith as number one, so that probably is your best option in wide receiver, I would say, at this point.
And Cecil Shorts, well, he'll be fun for garbage time games, because that's where he gets his points usually.
Yeah, Shorts can have a good breakout game every now and then. It's a question of when you start him, but we don't have high expectations for Jacksonville throughout the course of the season.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about Mikel LaShore with Reggie Bush now coming aboard to...
Again, what might surprise more than anything else out of your receiving core is that when you drafted Greg Olsen actually is a very good tight end and actually could be very productive for the Panthers throughout the course of the season. So Olsen actually would scare probably more opponents as opposed to your receiving core, really.
No, that's doesn't say much for his receiving core, though.
And
as much as we like Greg Olsen, top 15.
I don't know exactly how much Gates has left in the tank.
I still say Rob Gronkowski should have been his tight end. He said Gates over Gronkowski, and
it was a very bold move.
I see the New England Gronkowski combo, and that would have been worth the wait on him to get healthy.
I think basically,
especially a tight end where you're not getting a high one anyway. At that
I
still
still
point
think throughout the course of the season the key is going to be how you alternate your defenses. I think that's going to be the key.
Week
just
1,
by looking at your roster.
Yeah, week 1 I think they get Denver, so that's going to be a.
I don't really.
That's going to be a good
starting them, but we'll see what you decide to do.
See what happens there. Yeah. But what do you think? Tom's going to get back to the playoffs?
I could certainly think you can challenge me. I certainly think so. He's got a shot. He had a very good regular season last year.
He did.
Came out of the gate very strong. So
last year's basically a 2-man race the whole season.
It's a team depends upon that could scare you. The combination with his offense between Kaepernick and San Francisco, which might actually get the brunt of the starts this year.
Again, the problem is does New England bump into that?
And a right game could scare, but I would say, but it has to be a right game. It has to be a right game where you can have 40-plus points. Because if your supporting cast doesn't get much, it's going to be troublesome.
It could get
very troublesome and ugly. I'm just saying that on a regular basis. So we'll see. But the offenses certainly are a threat.
Moving down the line, the
next team actually was very interesting, which is System of the Down, who didn't really have the best draft position. But actually, if you look at their roster, it's actually a pretty good, solid roster.
I need a minute before I form my thoughts, though, because that's just about how he took about 5 minutes per pick, so maybe we should take a...
Don't mind him taking the time to do that. And he actually got a lot of great value picks.
Yes,
fourth and fifth rounds. That actually was the most interesting part.
Yes, a defensive combo of Dallas and New England that wasn't taken until the 4th round. Now, if you're going to bypass defense, that's not too bad. Defense is a fall into late.
That and you got Deshaun Jackson late. So he's actually got a decent roster. He's got a great combination. Brady, of course. So we still believe Brady will be productive.
Brady's still a top 5 quarterback in this league. Don't underestimate Tom Brady
I'm not
that
going
way.
to underestimate Tom Brady. He'll certainly give him points. To me, that I don't see him ever letting go Tom Brady, at least until he retires. Again, Houston offense, still a very solid offense. Still going to be probably one of the better teams in the AFC this year.
That's always been Ariel's go-to, though.
It's always been his
He's
go-to.
loved Houston's offense.
Yep.
I hate Ryan Matthews. And I hate Matt Forte. I don't really like his running.
You don't care for San Diego altogether.
Back me up here by video. Just like nod your head or go like, yeah, San Diego offense really fucked me over before.
Just by looking at his running backs, it depends on when you start them. Okay.
Well, Matt Forte is not a touchdown back. This love of Matt Forte, he can't get into the end zone.
I usually avoid Forte because of that in our league.
Forte, great yardage guy, but he only puts up 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Clearly, Chris Johnson is his number 1 back, and coming off of a bad year.
Yes, Mike knows a lot about Chris Johnson and bad year.
So again, he's the number 1 back. To me, I had Foster as my number 1. He actually was my number 2. His running backs, I would say, are not necessarily as strong, but
I'd say the weakest of the lot.
I'd say the course of the year.
I'd say the weakest of the lot that we've seen from the 14
yours
status.
Yours
you think this is a better? You think this is better? I'll take my 5 Russian roulette. Though. I'm sorry, Matt Forte alone.
And Tom, you have an opinion on this, don't you?
Tom is, by the way, pointing his finger at me in this discussion. So you think I'm really right or I'm really biased.
You have an opinion. I know you have an opinion, and you don't like his running back core at all.
I like Andrews a lot better than this.
Yeah, there we go. There we go from the fan base, folks.
All right, we'll score.
And no, I did not trade Tom a draft pick for that.
I'll score 1 for Ariel on this one.
All right, well, it's okay. You and I will differ. I like the wide receiving core, especially in the Fitzgerald's going to have a bounce back year.
It's a very decent receiving core. Fitzgerald, Bolden, Jackson, Welker, each will actually be productive this year. It also depends, like I said, when you ever start them, and he's going to have a very interesting decision considering he's got a lot of depth with those receivers. So, and they can only start 2. So it's a question of which 2 that goes with.
He's going to have some tough decisions every week at wide receiver, but at the same time, though, tough decisions lead to good options. Yeah, I'd rather have tough decisions than to go, I'm fucked for the week.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, so
I think the key is going to be really with him. More so is probably going to be defensively. I think that he's got Dallas, he's got New England. New England's defense we know is not necessarily the most solid defense and will allow points. So, and considering don't have a lot of high expectations for New England this year, in particular, defensively overall, we'll see exactly what they do. Remember, that's his number 1.
On the plus side, there are 2 games against the Jets, so how bad can New England's defense be for him?
And Dallas is in a tough division, and they could easily score. Okay, so
new defensive coordinator in Dallas this year, though.
Yeah, I would say almost that Dallas could be his number 1 as opposed to New England.
I think Dallas is his number 1, quite frankly. I don't think New England was ever his number 1.
So it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. By the way, we don't talk about kicker because we frankly don't care about kicker. So everyone's kicker is pretty much the same.
Not necessarily, but
the drunken lush gets higher marks.
Gets higher looks as he's out of shape and he could kick.
All right, next up we have the Rough Riders, who have been they have been going downhill the last couple years. They were those days that used to be Super Bowl contenders, and now last year they were next to a team that never submitted a lamp. They were the laughing stock of the league.
For starters, I think it was a no-brainer for him keeping Manning in Denver's offense.
When has he not kept Peyton Manning in the offense he was on?
Fair enough, but the point that I was
it's actually robotic of Ben to do that.
One of the steals that he wound up getting is Robert Griffith III. It would be interesting to see exactly how he differentiates Manning and Griffith, when to start Manning and when to start Griffith.
My prediction, you won't see Griffith start too often.
Which you almost could say could be a waste of a pick, or potentially could be
good.
You
can say a waste of a pick in round 2.
You can potentially say waste of a pick or a good bargaining chip for a potential trade if he decides to do it.
Again, a quarterback-heavy league. What are you gonna trade RGV for? Everyone has a quarterback in this league.
You could trade him for draft picks for the following season if he chooses, and that could certainly bolster. That actually could be a good move for him, down the stretch.
Yes,
it certainly can.
Yes, this podcast employs everyone to trade and talk to each other throughout this. Actually make trades.
Yes,
that's what's fun about this league when you make trades. I'm a heavy trade.
I'm just saying, considering that he's going to start manning the majority of the time, Griffith would be a good bargaining chip. A very good bargaining chip. Considering that Peterson fell in his lap at 4, and I would have taken him at 5 for sure, if I had
yes,
that chance.
cry me a river if you took it 5, Mike. Cry me a river.
I would have. And considering that Gonzalez was actually taking 3, Peterson, which is no-brainer, it could be, and he's got a good compliment with Alfred Morris.
I like Alfred Morris. Darren McFadden, well, as a third running back, I like him.
That's a third running back.
As a third running back,
So I would say
there.
that he's got great depth at the running back position. I'd say it's the best core that I've seen in running backs so far.
Yeah, for simplicity, three high caliber backs. AP alone makes them better than any running back core.
I really think that Ben's receiving core is pretty good. I do.
I'm not as high on it. I like AJ Green. Who doesn't love AJ Green? But
yeah,
I'm not a big Pierre Garçon fan.
Oh, Garçon and Rice aside, I'm not referring to those.
Despite the fact you spelled his name wrong on the rosters, just for the record, it's C-O-N, not S-O-N.
You really want to bring that up?
I like to bring up typos when I can. We should point out that we like to correct each other on mistakes too.
No one gives a shit.
That is true as well, but I'm going to correct this C here.
All right. Now, looking at the other two receivers. All right.
Sidney Rice.
No, I'm not referring to Rice as much as I'm referring to the other two that he drafted.
All right, we like Mike Williams. If Mike Williams lives to his potential.
Yes, Mike Williams lives up to his potential, signing the new contract. He could certainly be. I would have taken him. If Ben,
at his position, yes. I believe Mike Williams was a good pick by Ben.
I thought it was a good pen. I was actually targeting Williams, actually, before he snatched him. So I had Williams on my roster last year. So, yeah, I think Williams could be a solid number 2 and a very good wild card throughout the season after signing a new deal. And he's got Antonio Brown, who you liked, as his number 3. Now, whether or not he pencils in Garçon or Rice, that's entirely up to him.
Probably won't see too much time unless they have an idea.
Probably won't see as much time. But just by looking at Green, Williams, and Brown, I think that's a decent receiving core. And Finley is going to get his touches at the tight end position. He will get a share of touchdowns throughout the season. Looking at
weakness is going to be
the
defense.
weakness is going to be the defense.
Defense.
I would say more so. It'll be interesting to see how he rotates this between the Jets and Tampa. They might have more
cover 2
and higher expectations.
Cover
this year
2 versus cover. Tampa Bay defense will be useless 4 games of the year already because I dare Ben to start them against Atlanta and New Orleans.
That would be the interesting point. And he might not have an alternative. So we'll see.
Because the Jets are going to have problems moving
the
ball.
But who's to say he's going to have these 2 defenses throughout the course of the year?
There's always free agency. We have the 21 rule, but you could see Ben having maybe take the 21 every now and then. So I
can see that with him, but
yeah.
I think that clearly is the disadvantage.
Denver's offense, top 5 this year?
Top 5. Yeah, I think he'll start 90% of the time.
He has to start 90% of the time. St. Louis is not
considering he's going load. Too.
Yeah.
And he's got St. Louis as a backup.
He's got to ride that combo. He also has to be kicking himself. They couldn't really get any of the receivers for Denver, too, to really make this a really threatening game.
I think the key is that he passed. What he did is he signed Robert Griffith III knowing full well that he was actually going to get used the time.
I don't know where
he sacrificed potentially maybe a better defense out of the 2 as a result.
Or he could have gotten a receiver from Denver. Like, any one of the... He could have gotten Denver, maybe.
I think the need actually could have been more the defense.
I agree. Defense was a priority, but I think
he does have a chip with Griffith that he could potentially use as a trade, and I'm sure somebody might want Griffith.
Yeah. The question is, did you really need a backup quarterback in round 2 with Peyton Manning?
That's what I have to say. But other than that, I think that Ben's got a solid squad.
I do. I think this is a much better team for Ben than last year's,
I agree.
San Diego, Denver
more
disaster.
Interesting thing is what he will do with Griffith. More so because he might not start him as much.
All right.
Moving on to the next team, we'll go to the expansion team, which is Maximus.
Maximus.
We will give Maximus a break, considering that this is. I can't speak for Andrew, okay, but considering it's new for him, okay. We'll talk about a lot of different things, what he did right and what
Consider this a learning to do. Consider this a learning lesson here.
Yes.
We're gonna try to help you out here and tell you where you went wrong.
For starters, his quarterback is good. His 2 quarterbacks are good.
Yeah, no problem wrong with Eli.
It'll be interesting to see exactly when they square off with each other which one he decides to actually start. But I don't think you'd go wrong with either one. To me, could they score 18 plus? Manning's probably more capable of doing it than Romo.
It's kind of like 1A, 1B with Romo.
1A and 1B.
I could see he's gonna play matchup game where most teams are gonna be starting a quarterback regardless of whatever.
Looking at his roster, the clear strength is his quarterback position. I would say probably more than anything else.
Unfortunately, though, being short on a quarterback is kind of like a free admittance to this league. Everyone's going to be probably strong at quarterback. So not
Unfortunately, looking at his running backs, unfortunately the highest one he's got is Jones Drew, and it plays for a bad team. So
I'd say Ahmad Bradshaw probably has a better chance of being safer throughout this year. Jones
probably
has a higher
does.
risk reward.
we don't know exactly how the Colts will actually use Bradshaw throughout the course of the year. Bradshaw might have more TDs at the end of the year as opposed to Maurice Jones-Drew, simply because we anticipate the Colts actually might get more wins, and therefore Bradshaw might be involved more. Considering the other two, almost obsolete between McKnight and Pede.
Pete was, I guess, a risk. Maybe Pete can steal the starting job away.
Yeah, fifth-round pick, and probably that might have been the best running back available on the board at that particular time.
I believe if anyone wants Joe McKnight, I believe the going rate is a sack of potatoes.
Yeah. Again, we didn't want to say anything during the draft, but I didn't expect him to take McKnight, or anyone, matter of fact, to even bring up his name.
Looking at his wide receiving core, some interesting choices here.
The receiving core is not the most strongest and certainly doesn't have a lot of depth on his squad.
Has a couple tasty picks.
I would say so. Amendola is clearly the top-tier receiver out of this one. Amendola might have been considered number 2 on a lot of rosters.
He's got to stay healthy, Amendola. That is what kills Danny Amendola is his health.
I agree. He's got a lot of potential.
There's Greg. It's Greg Brainwash Jennings.
Well, Jennings, of course, almost for the same reason Amendola. Can he stay healthy? Could he actually be number 1 on Minnesota's offense? How productive is he going to be? I'm pretty sure that he might be if he stays healthy. It's an okay 1-2 punch. It's an okay.
I'm not sure T.Y. Hilton could be number 2 on this team, quite frankly, in touchdowns at the end of the day.
I'd rather take the shot on Jennings because he's got more experience.
And then there's Braylon Edwards, which I guess someone had to go on the Jets.
Yeah, well, considering, like I said, not a lot of depth at the wide receiving position. But certainly, I don't think that a lot that brings to the table that would scare you on a regular basis. If he gets 6 out of his wide receiving position during the course of a week, you almost might consider it to be lucky.
That's not a positive thing in this league. You have some teams that have really strong receiving cores out there that can really that will pull up 6 to 12,
and he's got Gonzalez, and Gonzalez will certainly get his share.
Tony's getting 7 touchdowns a year. Tony Gonzalez though just shouldn't be your number 3 pick.
Yeah, that's
just the lesson there. I like Keller as a backup. Yeah. Dustin Keller's a good backup tight end pick for him as well.
But to me, overall, it doesn't scare me as much. It doesn't. It could be an okay one. It's an okay 1 to 2 punch.
I'd say the weakest offenses we've seen so far: Seattle, Buffalo. I'd say this is a team that generally has an offense.
Seattle. If you think is going to go places this year, you're going to take Seattle's offense. Seattle is the number 1 offense. Okay.
Are they top 10 offense though?
That'd be an interesting question.
That's borderline.
I would think that Seattle actually will put a points for him throughout the course of the season. Buffalo, again.
Buffalo's a wild card.
Buffalo is a tremendous wild card.
Wild card there. We don't even know who Manuel could be their starting quarterback, but Manuel's missing the rest of the preseason as we're recording this. So.
Yeah. We don't know how well Buffalo is going to do offensively this year.
I consider that basically a plug-in. Like that also gives him a.
It's a plug-in.
He can play free agency every week offensively.
I would anticipate the Maximus will start Seattle throughout the whole
Pittsburgh is a defense. Does Pittsburgh still have its elite status anymore in this league?
That was the key. The same thing goes for Baltimore too. Do we feel that both defenses, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, how well are they actually going to do? Okay, I'm not quite sure how good Pittsburgh's going to be defensively. They might take a back seat this year. Considering what his other defense is clearly it's number 1. Philadelphia, I do not have a high hope.
Start at your own risk.
Yes, I would say that's one of your start at your own risks. Pittsburgh, to me, is his number 1. He's going to be starting the majority of the time. Certainly, I think that Pittsburgh might have a better time defensively than Baltimore. I think that they would, considering they did make the playoffs. They might have a more softer schedule. So, Pittsburgh, to me, actually might not be bad as opposed to Baltimore. We'll see which games that they wish to start Pittsburgh, but in this case, I have a feeling he's going to start.
Yeah, I got a feeling this is going to be a learning experience for Maximus this season.
I agree.
Well, we have had expansion teams in the past strike gold. Solmente's one of them.
Yeah.
No matter what the Rough Riders will claim on that, but we've seen expansion teams have success, and we've seen some like to smooth it down, take a couple years to adapt, and we'll see. And this is a good chance for him to really see what it's like to be in this league for 15 weeks. And he's playing with nothing to lose. And you're playing with nothing to lose on the plus side. You don't have expectations, which is a good thing to have.
Yeah. So maybe he'll fly under the radar, and maybe he'll steal some games.
The worst you can do is surprise us.
Okay, the next team.
Oh, the Hot Rods.
The Hot Rods need to show some promise.
I'd
like to see the Hot Rods actually try to show some promise. I know we always felt that Tom might have been the the front joke of the league.
When Tom finally breaks through, the hot rods will then be the joke of the league. I hate to say the hot rods have been skating under the radar because of the Bolts, quite frankly, in terms of their playability over the years.
Yes.
The hot rods only have about one playoff appearance, I think, in 6 years now?
So the hot rods need to make more of a stand this year, I would actually say, in our league.
Now I know he's gonna have to. I know he's gonna have to rename himself 30s Club after this year, but this unfortunately may not be his year to do it due to the worst draft position we've seen in history of this league.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate that the hot rods actually had that kind of draft position. You almost kind of wish that he had the hat back.
Yes,
I think I had like 4 non-30 picks, which was like in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, almost I've never seen anything like
Yes,
it.
the hot rods are going to start to bring back the hat campaign, but we'll fall on deaf ears. We're technologically advanced now.
And he's got actually, he really had a lot of time on his hands, and considering what was available at the time,
Well, let's look.
I mean, he kept Rice in Green Bay, which actually was a no-brainer, and I think he would keep those for a long period of time.
Green Bay's going nowhere along
Green Bay's going nowhere, and clearly Green Bay is his strongest, I would say, on this one.
It's what will keep him in games.
Yeah.
Green Bay will keep him in the games.
Drafting Luck, I don't think is terrible at all. A lot of people actually would have liked to have taken Luck.
I'm not sure how I feel about him as your number one quarterback, though, in this league.
I think that some teams might even have taken a flyer on Luck as their number one QB. Luck could certainly be a 12-plus point guy in our league. So,
plus he has good franchise potential if he does.
Sure.
If you get lucky on it's Andrew Luck's breakout year, you might have yourself a quarterback.
The Hot Rods might actually have a franchise quarterback for the near future if they decide to let's go of Rice.
I like Carson Palmer as his backup. I like Carson Palmer. I think Palmer's going to have a good rebound year with Arizona. Then luckily for him, we don't care about how many interceptions Carson Palmer throws.
And Palmer could wind up with okay numbers. Depends on when you start him. But clearly, I think the Hot Rods will use Luck the majority of the time. Yeah. Palmer, to me, more likely to be an afterthought.
A little weak in depth at running back. You're living off of Rice and David Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson is going to be the wild card in this, considering that he's going to be starting running back for the Giants this year. So, considering that Wilson is a number 2 on his squad right now, not terrible. Not terrible. No. More question if actually he was a number 1 as opposed to number 2. But Wilson's going to be most likely in the starting lineup as opposed to Vereen. He does not have a lot of depth at the running back position, so it's not really too much to choose from what he has.
That could be a problem. He's going to run into some matchup issues, and he can't play. And he's going to have to play around that. Sometimes depth is a little more valuable here, and I'd say he needs it. Wide receiver is the one where it's really going to be throw stuff at a board and see what sticks.
I would have to agree. Outside of Reggie Wayne probably is his best receiver out of the core that he has, and the rest right now are backups at best.
Yeah, Josh Gordon.
You wouldn't expect a lot of touchdown production out of these.
Gordon's probably his number 2.
Gordon probably is his number 2. Gordon actually could be the wild card this year, but then again, you don't have high hopes for Cleveland's offense. But yet he managed to draft him. So
this is a calling card for Brendan Wiegand to get picked up here. Just saying.
Gordon could be the wild card. If Cleveland's offense is productive, Gordon would be the guy.
Other things that crack me up: Golden Showers Tate.
We'll see what Tate does. Again, if you have high hopes for Seattle's offense, he could certainly be a big part of it. So you might get a diamond in the rough with Golden Tate throughout this year, but then again, he's relying on a lot of that.
That and a lot of bad referee calls.
There's not a whole lot of, how should I say...
There's not a lot of teeth on this team, quite frankly.
That's the word I was looking for. There's not a lot of teeth on this team. Wayne is a solid receiver. Outside of that, it's almost slim pickings.
We're living off one defense here, Chicago.
That was also the interesting part. He's only got the one defense.
I'm assuming that's a second defense waiting to be filled in.
Yeah, there will be a second defense. I'm pretty sure that he would fill in at this point, considering that actually was a top-tier pick he had in the first round, which is Chicago. I think that actually was his first overall pick.
And I wonder how good Chicago's defense really will be this year with their heart and soul Urlacher's gone. New coach. We don't really know what Chicago's personality is going to be this year, quite frankly.
I would say his defense is really incomplete because he only's got one, but then again, there aren't too many left to choose from at this point. But I'm pretty sure during the course of the season he'll wind up picking up something. Could even be before the season starts. So who's to say that he's going to start Chicago even week 1?
The bottom line is, in order for the Hot Rods to have a real success in this league this year, they're going to get Andrew Luck to break out to that John Elway he's supposed to be, and Green Bay's offense is going to have to continue to be a top 5.
Yeah, clearly
he has no shot at one of those two falters.
The best production he's got going for him would be Luck and would be Green Bay's offense, mostly. but a lot of it doesn't scare you throughout the course.
No, supporting cast is one of the weakest I've seen. He's gonna be losing points to a lot of teams over especially when the bye weeks come up.
Yeah.
So my advice, something you have not done in a while, Hot Rods, free agency. You fall asleep on this a lot during the year. I'm telling you, this is the year you got to be on free agency.
Not only that, he also traded away his first round draft choice to you as well.
I'm not complaining about that.
I know that could hurt him coming into next year.
Well, nothing says like rebuilding, like doing what the Oakland Raiders do.
I hate to say that you pulled Tom. Okay.
Is that what we're calling it now when teams make trades with me? We're calling them Toms when we don't like them?
Asshole.
Wow, I guess we're now coining phrases.
Yes.
This is not good for my reputation in this league.
Okay.
But I never had a good one.
But moving on to the next team, we're going to talk about the Smash Mouth.
Smash Mouth. Well, playoffs one year, disaster season the next.
We'll see what he does this year. Now, I understand the Smash Mouth actually have been very active. Actually, so they're actually showing great interest in this year's fantasy. They've already made some moves on the roster already to try to improve. Coming into the draft, clearly they have one of the two best running back tandems.
They have the best. They have the strongest running back tandem in the league.
They do.
Lynch Charles, Doug Martin.
Yeah, it's a great combo.
No, it's a shame. You can only start two of them a week.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see what he has. I know that he might be using one as a bargaining chip to try to unload to get better depth.
He also features the weakest quarterback tandem probably with Dalton and Bradford.
Not to say that either one can't put up 6 or 12 plus.
Dalton's a number 2 in this league, though.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to start him as a number 1.
Yeah. I would say the quarterback probably is not the least bit of his concern is looking at the rest of his roster because he frankly knows that the worst part of his squad would be the wide receiving position.
No, I'm not. He has good up top here. You still have Brandon Marshall, Vincent Jackson, and that's a solid 1-2 punch.
It's not a bad 1-2 punch, but I know he would want to improve that.
He also has Demarius Moore, the Raiders, James Jones on the back. It's not one of the worst wide receiver core.
It's not one of the worst, but I know he would at least want to use one of his running backs as a bargaining.
I think he's going to have a bigger issue at quarterback. Right, imagine, he has to go against, Andy Dalton's going to be playing against Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan. Those are matchups he's going to be trailing in every week, probably. He can't get an edge. He's going to have a hard time getting edges.
If you think that his wide receiving core is strong, he can certainly use that to compensate.
Yeah, I think his wide receiving core is stronger than you think it is.
I don't think it's a bad team overall just by looking at it.
Jason Witten's overrated. And there's no H in Witten.
You want to bring that up again.
I do, because it's just you should know better. You've been in the league for how long, man? I'm asking you to spell Husman Daga here. But, I don't like his tight end unit that much with Jason Witten, and of course there's a person on Cleveland there, and I'm apparently anti-Cleveland today, so.
Yeah. This is one of the signings in Cameron, one of the upcoming Browns. So if Cleveland has a
backup tight end, why the hell not?
Cleveland has a very good year, then you'll be eating crow.
Yeah, so I'll be eating crow every week on this podcast when Cleveland scores. We'll have a little footage here. I believe we have a bowl of crow that could be cooked.
Yes.
So. Other things, offense is going to be interesting.
This is the latest addition that he actually signed. He initially flip-flopped. He chose Minnesota after Rob accidentally picked the 3 offenses. And he actually chose Chicago and Carolina. And these are not bad offenses. I think that Carolina actually might be considered his number 1 as opposed to Chicago, but these are okay offenses.
I feel opposite. I feel Chicago is probably his strong. At least one thing I'll say about Chicago is you got Jay Cutler there, you got Matt Forte, you got at least some potential to get points there. I'm still not sold on Carolina as an offensive team yet.
I certainly think that they could actually be more productive than Chicago this year offensively.
But I hope for Cam Newton's sake, because after his GM calling him out this preseason.
Yeah, he needs to actually step up.
Cam Newton does need to play up at this point, especially with all the younger quarterbacks exceeding him at this point.
Defense is going to be interesting. Again, he did make some moves. He picked up Minnesota's and St. Louis's defense, which is not terrible. I don't think that
nothing elite there though.
Nothing elite there. Minnesota's solid.
Minnesota's going to have matchup problems all year for him. Again, I dare you to start Minnesota against your own offense, and Green Bay and Detroit.
Well, that's going to be the key because he has an offense that's in the same division, and he's got a defense within the same division.
Yeah,
so.
that's a conflict. That
could be a conflict.
St. Louis is in the same division as Carolina.
But then again, I had a conflict last year when I had Baltimore and Pittsburgh's offense. So it can be done.
It can be, but it's going to be an annoyance though. You'll find on some.
I don't think he's got a terrible squad, but I personally think he would like to add more depth, considering he's at some of the other positions. Considering he's got running backs. Clearly, the running backs is going to be his highest strength.
I would say RG3 is a good landing destination.
That could possibly be a good landing destination.
That's not a bad home to find. That would
I would agree. If he's got RG3 on that squad, then I would actually say that could be a very dangerous team. I would agree with that.
Moving forward to our one-hit wonder, the Falcons. Boy, if they didn't have that Super Bowl, we would be on there. We would be grading on them.
I know, actually, when you looked at this roster, actually, you saw some great things with the Falcons. Falcons, to me, I think have a very solid team this year, and I think they're going to have high expectations this year. Keeping Stafford, actually, I thought was very good. We know what Stafford's capable of doing, and he's actually managed with his first-round draft choice and picking Calvin Johnson to complement him.
Oh, God, 12 points every Calvin Johnson touchdown.
That's right.
Start shaking your head in pain now.
Yes. And considering that he's got Andre Johnson as well and Miles Austin, that's a great combination with his wide receiving core.
It's scary when Andre Johnson is your number 3 wide receiver, potentially. That's how scary this could be for people.
Yeah. And considering he also has Russell Wilson. Now, considering that Russell Wilson probably would have been number 1 on a lot of teams, it would be very interesting to see exactly how
good insurance policy for this.
Stafford's
an injury-prone quarterback. So
and considering if Detroit doesn't necessarily have a great year, you got something in potential with Wilson.
Even if Detroit wins 4 games this year, they're going to score points. Even if they win 4 games this year, it's not because their offense sucks.
He might look to Russell Wilson more if they're in a playoff chase as opposed to Stafford. But clearly, I think he would use Stafford more in the early going as opposed to
Yes. Bottom line is, I feel very comfy at quarterback room. I like DeMarco Murray being paired up with Dallas' offense, even if I don't like DeMarco Murray, because I think DeMarco Murray...
His running backs don't scare me as much.
No,
they don't. He's taking a flyer on Eddie Lacy as the rookie from the out of Alabama on the Packers squad. Mendenhall, he's injury prone. He's going to have the opportunity to play with the Cardinals. We'll see how well he does. He's got a couple of wild cards at the running back position. Nothing really that jumps off the page with the running backs in particular. That I would say his most weakest position. Looking at his offenses between Dallas and Washington, again, it can be done. You could actually still compete in this league and still do very well, even if you have 2 offenses within the same division. It just depends when you start them. I think a wild card, actually, for me last year, I drafted late, was Denver's defense. No one thought that Denver's defense was going to do well last year. It actually was one of my strengths last year, and he managed to get it.
I remember last year I got Seattle's defense late in the second round.
So, to me, Denver actually turned out to be a very high draft choice this year. So, again, Denver's going to be his number 1.
And for all the crap I give Cleveland, they are a respectable backup defense.
They could be a good respectable backup defense, but I'm pretty sure Denver will get the majority of the starts.
One thing I find strange here is the 3 tight end system we have here. Lots of roster spots to your tight ends.
Actually, I will change that. Cook is actually on the Rams. That I will change. That actually is more important.
Not the names.
Yeah, considering that Brandon Pettigrew and Jared Cook are I would say top tier B tight ends mostly.
At best.
Could certainly get you production in certain games.
Pettigrew's there for the combo pretty much.
Pettigrew was there for the combo, and I know how much he wanted to take Detroit's offense away from me. Unfortunately, he was unable to do that.
Yeah, Dallas, and he picked up Washington. I'd say it was a pretty good consolation prize.
I consider it a good consolation. The running backs don't scare me as much, but then again, we've gone through several teams that don't have a lot of great running backs, but have good offenses. This is going to have to heavily rely on the wide receiving position and for the combos to work between whatever quarterbacks and whatever offenses you have. Yeah. So
the Falcons are on a pretty big playoff drought. They have not been back to the playoffs since they won the whole thing.
I think if they play their cards right, they got a good opportunity. And keep in mind, what else? We'll see what happens with free agency and see how well it plays. In particular, the running back position, if there's someone out there that has either been released or is just an afterthought. So running backs, I think, are going to be very big in free agency this year if there is ever diamond in the rough. Because I can see a lot of teams just jumping on running back before anyone else.
It's going to get bloodlusty. Moving right along.
A team that's actually had consistent play for a while in our league, which is the Solomon.
Bottom dropped out last season.
The bottom did drop out last year on the Solomon.
Unexpectedly, quite frankly.
Unexpectedly. But again, the keepers that they made between Rodgers and between New Orleans, that really is a no-brainer.
Well, the biggest thing they shored up this year was defense. That has been killing Solomon for years. But I gotta say, this year at least they put defense at the forefront here.
Yeah,
considering Arizona as their two defenses.
It was a top priority. Of course, Houston's going to be the biggest defense that he's going to wind up starting this year, and he's got Arizona. And I don't think much of Arizona. I don't defensively. If they get a defensive score in the game, I consider it to be very good.
Like most teams, if you get a defensive score, you are considered to be very good. But
they're
good
not,
standard there.
Overall, they're not good overall.
No, they're a B defense at best.
Yeah.
At worst, they're going to have a lot of field position issues because of Carson Palmer's knack for throwing the ball to the other team.
But let's be honest, Houston's going to get the majority of the starts.
And as they should.
Yeah.
Looking at quarterback, Jay Cutler, I guess we'll have a fun time filling in for Aaron Rodgers once a year. Trent Richardson, nice pit, nice number one back as long as he stays healthy.
They liked Richardson in the first place. He was concerned that he wouldn't get him actually at the start of the draft and wound up getting Richardson 8. But then again, you like Richardson, but yet you don't like the rest of Cleveland.
Because if someone's going to score a football, it's going to be on the ground game. And he is the most dynamic weapon they have on offense. And we'll respect the one-man whipping crew. We all like Maurice Jones-Drew, but we're not going to give credit to Jacksonville's offense anytime soon.
The key is exactly what happens to the other running back position between a combination of Miller, Ballard, and Dwyer.
I have a three-headed coin. Let's just assign
pretty much. But I would anticipate that he's going to start Miller maybe the majority of the time.
Yeah, Ballard I don't think he's going to get that much love with Brad.
Yeah, considering that Miller probably is going to get the brunt of the carriage with the Dolphins, you're looking at if you get diamond in the rough with Miller this year. His wide receiver core is not bad. Cobb actually had a very good breakout year.
Cobb was a good sleeper last year.
Yeah.
It was one reason why the Bolts were riding themselves so long, so they were able to steal him in free agency.
And Nix could be productive if he stays healthy. Now, consider it could end Tavai Austin as a wild card. We'll see how well he does with the Rams. Clearly, that a lot pressure is going to be put on the Rams offense to produce this year around this young man. And Nix, if he could stay healthy, can be productive. We know that Cruz probably is going to be the biggest target on the Giants this year. Can Nick stay healthy, and could he actually contribute more so offensively? So, it'd be interesting to see who he starts alongside Cobb with the majority of the weeks. I anticipate that Cobb would be his number one, but would he rather decide to choose Austin as opposed to Nix? That is going to be the most interesting part. Sanders could play a role into this.
He's a bye week guy.
But he mostly would be a bye week guy. So the interesting key with the Salamenti, what he would do week to week, is decide whether or not he would elect to choose Nix or Austin.
Bottom line is he's going to be scary with New Orleans and Green Bay, but that's always been his go-to. But I think with the defense this year, I think that's always held him back. I don't think he's going to have that problem this year.
No, he's not. And the Salamenti could be a very good threat. Considering that if Houston's offense does produce on certain games, he could be a threat. We know what Rodgers is capable of doing. We know what New Orleans is capable of doing. He chose Rudolph for the tight end, which had a very good year for the Vikings. So we'll see if he's able to do that for the second consecutive year. So he could certainly be within the mix for the playoffs. Certainly. I think he's got a good shot considering that he got Houston's defense. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with his supporting cast during the course of the year. I think that's going to be the key with the Salamenti.
Yeah, I agree. To Bossman, last year Bossman were an interesting story. One of the weakest rosters, but yet every week they just put out the same thing and get the 9 wins, and they are able to make it to a playoff berth somehow. A very interesting year of making something out of nothing, I have to say. Looking at their team here, well, the one thing I'll say is here, we've met the best defensive squad in the league. San Fran, Miami.
I think he's got a good 1-2 punch.
It's the best defensive squad in this league.
Of course, I think that he'll use San Francisco the majority of the time. Not just because he's a Niner fan, because San Francisco probably has a better defense than Miami does. But Miami's would be a good number 2. But it depends when you start Miami. I can assure you that Miami actually might do better this year.
I think they're going to do better this year. I think they're in for a better season, quite frankly. So, yeah, I like Miami strongly as a backup for him, especially when you already have a top 5 defense in San Francisco. That just adds to the flavor.
I think he's solid to the quarterback position. It'll be very interesting who he decides to start week to week.
Vic and Newton's going to be a bit of a roulette game there. Yeah. No solid number 1.
No solid number 1, but certainly could be a very, very entertaining threat. Per week.
The running game, I'm mad at him for taking my Steven Jackson pick early on. That hurt.
We'll see what Jackson does.
Jackson will get the goal line carries at the least.
I would anticipate that Jackson would have a solid year. It's a very good number one. McCoy is not bad as the number two. The only concern I got with McCoy, health-wise, outside of that, is that Philadelphia, I think, will throw the ball more.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more vertical, but McCoy's a good passing running back too. So
I thought McCoy might get his touches, considering what was available at the time. McCoy.
He was a third-round pick, so I can't say that's smart value.
He doesn't have a lot of depth at the running back position.
Nope, he's banking on Michael James to steal Gore's carries.
Yeah.
And if Jackson gets hurt or something, if there's injuries at running back, that's going to create more problems for him. In the wide receiver column, you got Des Bryant
and Julio Jones.
That's about it.
It's a good tandem.
He's riding those two the whole season.
He's going to ride those two the majority of the season, and he's got Vernon Davis. So I would anticipate throughout the majority of the year, outside of bye weeks, you're going to see Bryant, you're going to see Jones, you're going to see.
His weakest thing is his offense. His weakest thing here is going to be his offenses.
Yeah. The offense is
no solid number one here.
There's no solid number one.
Not with Baltimore and Cincinnati.
One of these teams I don't see putting up, or would scare you, or at least would average 25 plus points. Dom, your battery's running low.
Yeah.
I got that over.
All right. We're almost done. All right. But yeah, that's going to be the key. But I think he could compensate for that, considering what he's gotten in the supporting cast of quarterback. So, I didn't have the elite offenses last year, but these teams are capable of putting up 20 points.
You're crawling your way to a third-place finish, though, when you have that. It helps when you have, last year I rode New England's offense to the,
It helps when you have a good, solid number one.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
If you can power, it's a lot easier to power drive your way with, a Green Bay offense or a New Orleans offense than it is to do it this way. I think it's a harder journey.
If he's got the two best defenses at one point.
It makes me feel better he has two of the best defenses, so he'll be able to get a plus 14
to me, it
with lower
almost would be
scores.
comfortable, and he would be more of an elite status to be having number one offense.
Yeah, I think that's all he's really missing on this team.
Yeah, that's what I think he really is missing. Other than that, I think he's got a solid team.
Yeah. Lastly, we turn to the third-place Pigskins, who keep sneaking their way in every year in the last week of the season.
What can I say? I just show up in the clutch.
You do. I'll give you that much. Bringing him back is his usual Houston front. I'll do most of the breakdown here.
You can do that. I don't have to break down my squad.
Yeah. We're looking at here of a Houston Texan arsenal here of Schwab, Foster, and Owen Daniels, because Mike loves Owen Daniels.
I do like Owen Daniels, coming off of a solid year last year as well.
Mike's also apparently learned his lesson about playing me last year, as he's definitely trying to shave off of me with Colson and Lance Moore as wide receiver.
I think they're good two solid receivers.
They are solid two wide receivers.
That's not the only reason why I did it.
I think you'd start those two over Roddy White just to spite me in that week. Or actually, Roddy White would shave off me too. I think your team's built to shave points off me.
It was designed for that.
No, it's just incidentally designed for that, but... look at the offenses. Love Detroit's offense for you this season.
Yeah, it was my...
This is one of those years where you finally let go of the AFC North and embrace the idea of a different division.
Yes, I did.
I think Jonathan actually inherited your offensive frame of mind. Again, quarterback, you're probably alluding off Schwab because Phillip Rivers, you'll just get angry at probably at some point this season.
Depends when I decide, but clearly Schwab is the number one.
Yeah, Alex Smith, I would say, is a better shot being your number two, quite frankly.
That could be debatable.
Roddy White's solid. Your running game's entirely built on Arian Foster, in my opinion. You don't really. D'Angelo Williams has never been a good running back for you, quite frankly. Cam Newton will have more touchdowns than the running backs of Carolina. Just pointing that out. Defense, this could be your problem. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Atlanta's defense. They're going to be a high-powered offense, and you can see you can get into a lot of shootouts.
I think to me with Atlanta, considering that we probably agree that Atlanta's probably one of the most elite teams within the NFL. So they're going to have their days where their defense is going to shut down opponents. So to me, that could be solid as number one. You could almost say the same thing about Denver. So I would say that's a good solid number one. The key is number two, not the number one.
Problem with Atlanta, then suck away.
Yep, the road will cause Atlanta problems. I do agree with that point. And your second defense is the Colts, another unproven defense, quite frankly.
Unproven defense after what they did last year, and so far it's not living up to its expectations. That might change throughout the course of the year. We'll see what I do.
This is the right thing to say, but your defense could be what makes or breaks you. Usually you don't have that problem. This year,
I would say that Atlanta would be a solid number one for me, considering, they are because they're considered to be one of the elite teams within the NFL.
Most teams still be considered a solid number two because of the away factor.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I don't think Atlanta's the top 10. I don't think you have a top 10 defense here, quite frankly. I don't think so. I think you got maybe one top 15. And that could be easily negated based on what you have here in terms of your strengths. Wide receiver is a gold mine for you with White, Colston, C. Smith, Lance Moore. Like,
I got great depth there.
Yeah,
I can assure you that these will be interchangeable throughout the course of the year. I can promise you that.
Yep, he's letting you in on your key strategies now, guys. Prepare. All right, that takes us to our run through the league. It's time to make some playoff predictions.
I don't really have any playoff predictions.
That's what makes this a crappy
Make one
podcast.
for fun.
I'll give you my 6.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not going to do that today.
Right.
You predict.
I'm gonna have my bias 6 here. I'm gonna go. I think for division winners, I'm going Falcons. I'm going Solamente, and I'm going Pigskins for division winners. Your wild cards, I think, are going to be Bossman, Rough Riders, Blitz. That's my 6 for the playoff teams. I'm only predict one out of the XFC
So clearly you
season.
think my division is the weakest.
Without a doubt, pal. Sorry, between the history of your division, I just don't think that's where the attention's going.
That works out very nicely for me and potentially for Tom.
Yeah. My finals, I think it's gonna be. I'm actually gonna go Bossman versus Falcons for the Super Bowl.
Oh, that would be.
I think it's gonna be Bossman's Falcons, and top of my head here, I'm gonna go Bossman's for the win. I think Bossman's are the team to beat this year.
I'm sure he'd love to hear that.
I might just give him a kiss of death too, so maybe you don't want to hear that. Maybe Maximus, this is your calling card here.
Yeah, you think Maximus is going to be the worst team in the league, do you?
Well, someone has to be number 12 in this league.
Yeah.
Like, someone has to be it. Well,
Yeah, be a tie.
Could be a tie. Hey, Ben could keep his title of worst team in the league.
I think I'll have a better team. I think
you will too.
Yes, I do.
I do think he'll have one too. I think he's a playoff team, quite frankly.
All right, you think that just about wraps it
Well,
up?
we got one more thing. We have to talk about week 1 matchups.
You want to talk about the game of the week?
Well, let's go through each matchup real quick.
And the snoozer of the week.
Our pillow fight of the week.
Just remember that every single week you're going to display the 5 moronic displays of intelligence.
Yes. Your mistakes will be graphic and noted in every edition of the podcast.
Also, the 5 brilliant moves of the week. Also,
that's not as fun. No,
Come on, the wall of shame.
No, Michael will be screaming out shit. I just like to use moronic displays of intelligence myself. But to week 1 matchups we go. First up, we got Pigskins versus Smash Mouth.
You're not going to call that the game of the week.
No, I'm not. That's just your run-of-the-mill game there. Blitz v. Rough Riders.
I think that's a good candidate.
That's a good candidate, but sorry, this one takes the cake. Matchup number 3, Bossman v. Falcons.
I would agree with that.
Super Bowl matchup I'm predicting here. It shows up in week 1.
I just think you looked at week 1 and decided that those 2 teams would be in the Super Bowl.
I know. I should have looked at Maximus.
I think so too.
I should have done Maximus and Killer Toads further down the line. I could use that logic as well. But Bossman and Falcons, I think, are going to be the best matchup of the week here. You got two interesting defensive matchups. You got good offenses. You got a team that's built on starters, and this is without bye weeks. These teams could look pretty scary when they're just going out with their normal arsenal. I think that is by far your game of the week. Pillow fight of the week. This one's gonna be Killer Toad versus Maximus. Sorry, this is Maximus gets a really hard test week 1 going against a 2-time champion and the runner-up from last year. From a management position, this is a tough one. This is gonna be a real tough one. Does that mean anything? No, it really doesn't. But someone's got to get Pill Fight of the Week, and Hot Rod's and system not close enough for that one. And the last matchup is the Bolts and Solamente. Can't really say much about that one. It's not too much smack talk.
What's your history?
Not much.
What's your history? You don't have any, or you don't know.
He doesn't have any.
Both.
It's not really any historical matchups for week 1, really. Blitz and Rough Riders haven't really crossed paths in playoff battles.
No, I think we're just waiting for when Tom plays Ben. That's what we're waiting for.
I believe that's week 4 on week 4.
That is week 4.
Yeah, so on that day, I guess I'll let the trash talk commence.
Yes.
What am I talking about? The trash talk's probably going to commence as soon as the podcast ends, but sure.
Ben, your team sucks.
You heard it first. Tom's already talking shit. Alright, so with that in mind, we're going to wrap this up. These podcasts will be much shorter. It's more of a preseason edition. We're hoping to have these clocked in a lot shorter in time. But for now, I'm Andrew Berg.
And I'm Michael Berg.
Good night and good luck. Goodbye and good luck, everyone.